What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. His name is Achilles. Where, buddy? Oh man, I got a lot of sun. It's warm again. What can I say? Yeah. Come here. You're important for this video because he's a tiny creature. Do you see him? He was on camera. Stop eating my headphones, boy. And Sprite's Ancestry Anthology. That's what we're talking about today. A race no bigger than my cat, now playable in this system. And we're here to talk all about it. Yes, we are. You're right, Achilles. If they're liking what they're seeing, what should they do? Like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Stay caught up with your Pathfinder. Yeah, first and second edition coverage. You're right, buddy. And how can they help support the channel the best? Can you tell us? That's right, buddy. Boops are the #1 way to support the channel. Or, Patreon. Help us do all this crazy stuff, get you some cool rewards. But for now, let's dive in. Alrighty, so this is a brand new race for Pathfinder 2nd edition, but far from a brand new creature in the D&D cosmology at large. And as you might have already guessed, of course, on planet Earth, much like a lot of the other playable things in fantasy, sprites have their roots in ancient mythology. The word itself, sprite, is derived from the Latin spiritus. There are a bajillion variations on said term. It's chiefly used with regards to elves and fairies in European folklore. That, of course, has a million other names, corresponding to a million other fairy tale creatures. In Pathfinder, sprites, much like all other fae, are whimsical creatures native to the fae realm known as the First World, which is its own video in and of itself, truly. And they have appeared ever since OG D&D, something on the order of 1 billion years ago. In Pathfinder, the first generation of material plane sprites were content to guard magical things, learn music, so on and so forth, and play pranks on the unsuspecting. As they stayed on the material plane and had kids, later generations were born without wings, and likewise, many fae who transitioned to the material plane would lose their wings after a time. These wingless children would eventually grow up to be the most mightiest heroes of the race, and eventually, as they got stronger, indeed, their wings would come upon them. And already I like this better than the Atari being just flat, hey, we've got wings, but it doesn't work. At least there is a descriptor, an in-canon reason why they're less powerful here. So far as their mechanics go, the sprite begins play with 6 hit points. It's a tiny creature with a speed of 20 feet. It's got boosts to dex in it with 1 freebie, and a flaw to strength. Begins play with Common, Sylvan, and bonus languages for high int, has low light vision, and get this, all their strikes are magical, whether with unarmed attacks or weapons. DR over magic, incorporeal things at level 1, eat it. This is also the first within the bounds of Pathfinder official, though really if you look at the height and weight chart for the Gripply in 1st edition, technically they fell within the realm of tiny, but here, tiny creature. One thing I really like is that Paizo went way out of their way with this to describe exactly how that works in combat, because if we're panicking about things with wings, truly we should be panicking about tiny creatures as well, given that a tiny creature can just fit into a lot of places in the world that even a small creature can't. My house cat is a tiny creature, for example. A tiny sprite, of course, can enter another creature's space, which is important because their melee strikes usually have no reach unless you've got a reach weapon, then you'll have a reach of 5 feet. Like other tiny creatures, you don't automatically receive lesser cover from being behind someone's leg, but you could maybe use an action to take cover. You can buy weapons, armor, and other items for your size with the same stats as normal gear, which is huge. Well, medium, I guess, technically, but like that means you can run around with a 1d12 greatsword, no longer be super penalized for being small. Of course, your melee weapons. They also go as far as to point out that if you're riding along with another PC or similar non-minion intelligent creature, as in standing on the barbarian's shoulder, you roll both initiatives, yours and your allies, and use the lower of the two. You act in either order on the same initiative count, and each of you get 2 actions at the start of your turn instead of 3, since each of you spend an action maintaining the balancing act. But I don't hate that. Play something that wants to go last, some kind of healer thing. When your friend goes, you go with them. Be in advantageous places to buff, or second option, I suppose, both of you just max your dex, do rogue shenanigans, get value. Anyway, heritages, aka a bunch of different fae things that we're now all wrapping up under the sprite umbrella. The Draxi, first up, kin to the fairy dragon, gains touch telepathy, which lets you communicate silently and purely mentally with any creature you're touching as long as you share a language. Pretty darn good if you're, I don't know, hiding in the rogue's backpack helping with stealth. You've seen something they haven't. Just tag them on the back of the head, be like, hey, behind us. The Grig, the tauric creature, half cricket, half fae, stronger than both, he gets a +2 circumstance bonus on athletics checks to high jump or long jump, and gets ghost sound as a primal innate. The luminous sprite, or the sprite that does sprite things, naturally sheds light as a torch, with of course the evocation, light, and primal traits. They can extinguish, rekindle, or change the color of this light using a single action with the concentrate trait. The Melixi, a fae with the features of a bee, butterfly, or other insect that loves sweets, can ask questions of and receive answers from arthropods, such as insects, spiders, scorpions, crabs, and similar invertebrates, as well as use diplomacy to make an impression or request. Most bees, butterflies, moths, and beetles are indifferent or friendly starting out and give you time to make your case, though other arthropods, well, given your size, might try to swallow you up. But the Nyctera, bat fae, can, as long as it can hear normally, use the seek action to sense undetected creatures in a 60-foot cone instead of a 30-foot. It gains a +2 circumstance bonus to locate undetected creatures that they could hear within 30 feet with the seek. And lastly, the Pixie, because if you really just didn't want to be a gnome, mood, begins play as a small creature. Feats, here we go. First, foremost, and most important, Corgi mount, because indeed, if you ask the Celts, that's canon. You form a magical connection with a Corgi that can serve as your mount. It is small rather than tiny, and is appropriate for you to use as a mount. Unlike most familiars, it's got scent, which counts against your limit for familiar and master abilities as normal. It can never gain a familiar ability that grants any speeds other than a land speed, which is kind of unfortunate, and I know we're like really gating flight in 2E, but this does feel like a giant missed opportunity to be the little tiny guy riding on the Corgi with butterfly wings, because Desna Magic Go, nothing is more magical than a tiny lancer. Pixies can't ride corgis, but they can get a corgi familiar. Evanescent wings lets you manifest wings that can flutter for brief spurts, meaning that you don't need to spend any additional actions to reach something in your space that a medium creature could reach. Now, this is never called out anywhere in the Sprite's entry. Maybe this is somewhere in like the universal rules for tiny. For instance, if you really just need to move a cookie jar 4 feet off the ground, you only got to spend the single interact action to do so. I suppose this at least makes sense given the nature of the way the feats work, but your mileage may vary. Fae cantrips gives you dancing, light, and ghost sound as primal innates. Grigs get detect magic. Draxies get prestidigitation. Speak with bats for the Nyctera can, well, do the same thing that the bee one does with arthropods, but with bats. And you get a +2 circumstance bonus on diplomacy checks to make an impression or request. Sprite Spark lets you fling a portion of your magic at foes. That's fun. You gain a ranged unarmed attack in the sling weapon group with a max range of 20 feet that deals 1d4 damage with no ability modifier. This can be improved with hand wraps. The Draxie gets a mental euphoric spark, luminous spark for the Firefly Sprite, aka the luminous sprite, sonic for the Grig's dissonant note, sting shot for the Melixi at poison, ultrasonic pulse sonic for Nyctera, and mental pixie dust for the Pixie. It's unfortunate this never gets stronger because it's fun to like think about playing around these. Just feels like a missed opportunity if you can't make that D4 a little bit bigger. Though I guess having fire damage at will can be pretty good against a certain amount of treants. Animal Speaker at 5th. If you can communicate with some kind of animal, you can now speak to all of them and get a +1 circumstance to make an impression. Catchy tune. Feels like a huge missed opportunity that this was not for the Grig, because this is literally what a Grig does. You create a tune so catchy, your foes can't help but dance along. Make a performance check against the will DC of all the bad guys in a 30-foot emanation. On a critical success, targets take a -10-foot status penalty to their speeds and they're flat-footed for a round. On a success, targets take a -5 status penalty to speeds for a round. Critical failure, they're immune for an hour. Against things you're much stronger than, or things with low will saves, this is everybody's best friend. As just like a big flat foot debuff. There's no like temporarily immune for an hour on a success. So you could just keep spamming this until you fumble and everybody else gets value. That's quite playable, honestly. Fey Disguise lets you cast Illusory Disguise once per day as a first level primal innate. It's heightened to 2nd at 7th and every 2 levels thereafter. Energize Wings, if you took Evanescent Wings for 1 action, you gain a fly speed of 30 feet for a minute. Pretty easy to see that one coming. We shouldn't be gating flying that much, I don't think. but at least, again, it makes sense here. There's some canon reason. Fey magic gives you fairy fire and invisibility each once per day, leading up to Invisible Trickster, which actually doesn't lead up to it at all, come to think. Looking at this, unless this is a typo, there is no prerequisite. Just wait for this one at 13th and get your 4th level invisibility as a primal innate once per hour. Every rogue's best friend. Fey Skin lets you increase your max HP by an amount equal to your level. If you rest for 10 minutes, light from the first world seeps into you from your wings, or the spot where they should be, causing you to regain a number of hit points equal to your level. This is cumulative with any hit points you regain from treat wounds. You of course get weakness 5 to cold iron about it. Probably a pretty good trade, unless like all the bad guys know you're a sprite and are packing cold iron arrows about you, which I guess by level 13 is possible. But Hero's Wings, lastly, just give you the wings forever and ever, and all the sprites recognize you as very powerful. You get a +2 circumstance bonus on diplomacy intimidation checks against them, and free glad hand against other sprites. If this is coming up at level 17, then hey, sure, why not? Now, I've definitely played a sprite, quote unquote, in a one-shot. Truly, it was just a Gafflin that I was kind of reflavoring, and I missed the Gafflin a lot, honestly. I was hoping to see that one printed up too, because the Gafflin was super fun and could have been a heritage, honestly. We've put everything else under the sprite that could have fit in just as easily, but I've also GM'd for tiny fey creatures on more than one occasion. It's an interesting dynamic, truly. As the battle is raging, eye level to us. Meanwhile, down at our ankles, there's a little guy with a sling throwing little tiny sling pebbles at the heads of dretches and watching dretches explode. It's a whole thing. And believe me when I say that a tiny creature can get a lot of different places on the battlefield, as well as just hanging out exploring. Again, a great reference, a house cat. Your character is that big. How easy is it for you to hide in someone's bag, you weighing, what, maybe 10 pounds? Maybe they don't even notice the weight. If there's a bunch of other stuff in there, hide in someone's cart, hide under the axle of a wagon, roll stealth, go get the information, then stealth right on back again. It also feels really weird to see this without the like +4 dex, I think it was more than that actually, that a tiny creature would get. Now you get that fey flavor and truly a lot of powerful things without it just being somehow better than the fighter with 3 levels of Unchained Rogue, and here's now like 1d2 plus way too many plus sneak attack jammed into somebody's like Achilles tendon, which feels very win-win. If I were to play this, I would one of two things. I would either hold out for catchy tune and then play something along the lines of like a champion. That doesn't have the flourish trait either. Son of a bitch, look at that. So you just like, once you are in the thick of things, you're like catchy tune, strike, raise a shield, or like catchy tune, raise a shield, to just keep debuffing while people who are hurt can back off, while rogues can sneak attack, while everyone can crit. That's very damn powerful. Or just wait till 13th and have a once per hour, which might as well be once per encounter-ish, give or take. Don't quote me on that. Your GM might vomit a lot of monsters at you. Moving around with impunity, stabbing all the things. But that's all the time I have for today. What do y'all think? Are we rolling up sprites? How do you feel about the Fae in your campaign? Throw it down in the comments. We'll be back at it next week for another episode of the Ancestry Anthology. But until then, we'll see you next time.